See, as I was just saying, right, at what point do people start to not follow what other people say, whether it's a friend, a teacher, the media, and start to use own common sense from within that is actually often the truth?
Well, I think first off that a lot of people in general just follow mass media, whatever's trending at the time. So as we should do it in the very beginning, I don't think that in these times that that's ever followed, where you just start thinking on your own. I think that people want to do it, but when they start to go down that path, a friend, a family member tells them, well, you should be worried about this, and people do it. I'm not saying everyone does it, but I would say the general media does it.
Yeah, and this is the thing. People say that it's all about, mind manipulation, control, whatever, but they're serving the people based on what the people want to hear. So if at some point people start to follow the media many, many years ago, people are going to continue to watch it. And it's public service duty for the media to put out what the people want. So it's this vicious cycle of essentially, I've created a bug. Okay, I'm going to give it to everyone. And now you watch us to see where the bug is so you can like make sure you don't get it. It's this cycle of negative stuff that just keeps going around, around, and round. And do you think that people like us, podcasting and YouTubers and online people, are going to start to really take off because it's not just about mainstream media anymore? You can get your news from thousands of people all over the world and sort of create your own opinion from lots of different people.
Yeah, I think that you can create your own opinion. I think that that's kind of a double-edged sword, though, for podcasters like us. Now, of course, with Mind Doublespeak Studios and Dads That Drink, we talk about news every week. Whether it be serious news, funny news, whatever it is from around the world, and we do give our own opinion. I think the double-edged sword there, though, is, and we kind of talked about it last week on the show, is you can reach all these people, but I think that having that ability to reach all these people is also a problem, because your very first question was, when do people start following their own? I think if they have people telling them what to do and they have so many different sources telling them what to do, I think that that can end up being a bad thing. It's depending on who they follow. So if they follow, hold on for just a second, my camera just shut off. I don't. Okay, it's back. I think that with all those different inputs coming in to where they're at, that they never shut it off. And that can end up being worse than if they were just getting it from mainstream media or from people that were quote unquote held to a higher standard for um, presenting the news to them, presenting the ideas that are out there. So I, like I said, I think it's great that all these people can get out there and give their opinion. I also think it's kind of the bane of our existence right now. So,
Just quickly before I reply, your camera's off still.
okay. Let's see. I'm not sure why it did that. Because I'm rolling here. Let me see if I can get it to come back
Okay, it's
on.
back on. It's back on. Right.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
it's true. When people are sort of not trusting news and information that they hear, see from everyone else, and then you start looking at podcasters, for example, who are aware of all this stuff, and you think their opinion is more superior. Well, yeah, it may be more superior and right and correct compared to the news on the media, for example. But then again,
Hmm.
if they're always following somebody else, they're never going to
Hmm.
have a chance to go within and find their own self. So you're right. People, for example, will be trying to sleep with us in their ear hole rather than speaking to God, for example, and finding answers that are connected with them and that mean something to them. So yeah, it's a blessing and a curse, like anything in life. Um, everything is good and bad, and it's like, at what point do you sort of when is it balanced out? Because I love listening to the podcasts, and I've worked all my shit out years ago, so I don't really need to go within as much. But people who are struggling to find themselves, they're not able to go within because they need more knowledge, and by listening to more people who have the knowledge, you depend on them more. So I think it's one of those reasons where you need to be like just stuck with no one and nothing, and you're forced to sort of start speaking to yourself.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think an even bigger problem than not speaking to yourself is all of these people, and I hate to say this because I'm one of the podcasters, but how much is misinformation and how much is real information? When you talk about we're in people's ear holes all the time when they're sleeping, when they're awake, when they're working out, when whatever it may be, how much of that is just off the cuff of what they're thinking, and how much is actual real information that has been presented by the experts? And I think that that can be a problem, because I think a lot of people, I see it every day, a lot of people follow just stuff that they hear, and I would say even the more sensationalized it is, the more people follow it.
Yeah, so if somebody's knowingly talking about something, knowing that they're wrong, just because they want to be considered as right or the one who's more superior, then yeah, that's like pissing on your own doorstep. Just to like, there's just it's no good's going to come from that. Whereas if you think about news anyway, well, most of it's nonsense anyway. So it's like, well, if all this news is nonsense and all the papers are nonsense, and podcasters, for example, are speaking their thoughts as opposed to things that they know are fact, we're no different, really, are we? It's no different to us watching the news or reading a paper, reading a blog online, repeating it because we think it's true from the papers versus what I think in my head is true. It's the same thing. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, and that's kind of the point that I'm going to, is that, you know I think that you have to approach it as, I, I I think that there are truly some people out there that present their ideas, and you see it on podcasts and you see it on YouTube, where they present that they are actual and factual when it is just their opinions. And I think if that's stated, at the beginning, or that people know that it's just your opinion, that you're just talking about stuff. Hey, I read this is what I think about it. That's one thing. To present it as news, to present it as fact, is a completely separate thing. And I think that's the problem that we get into a lot, is that people go past their opinion, or making fun of it or whatever, and they present it as, this is what you should know in order to do this. And this thing that the pandemic that the world is going through right now is a perfect example of it. People constantly are saying, well, I heard you have to do this, and I heard you have to be 6 feet, and I heard there can only be 10 people in a room. Well, I heard there can only be 15 people in a room. Well, I heard there can only be 6 people in a room. And no one's really sure of exactly what needs to be done, because everyone's heard a different thing. And there is so much miscommunication out there that it leads to more problems than it actually helps.
Yeah, I believe that nothing is really truly a fact. So if you think about, for example, scientists 50 years ago have come up with something, right? And as technology moves on, as scientists explore stuff, you find out new things. Just like when you think there's only like 10 galaxies up in space, there's actually more. And if you can't drink wine because it's bad for your liver, it turns out it's good for your bowel, for example. And like
Right.
butter's not good for you. But as everything is factual until it's disproved, and often a fact is a fact when people stop looking, or you are looking for an answer, you find the answer and you stop looking. But anything, if you go back in time, always ends up being right and wrong. It's only facts based on a majority of people coming together, which makes it believable, or there's
Absolutely.
scientific proof, but that's only based on the resources they had and the knowledge of the scientists. So the answer is to all of this is, don't rely on anyone else. Don't rely on anything else apart from yourself. Common sense.
Yeah, and that's a perfect example. Eggs were good for you forever, and then they were bad for you, and now they're good for you again, and I'm sure they'll be bad for you. And it's depending on what source that it's coming from. If you look at, I love watching documentary films, but you have to go into a documentary knowing that it's going to be skewed to the director's feelings about the situation. It's impossible not to do that. They're presenting their thought on the subject. So you have to look at even documentaries that are supposed to be true fact movies. I'm not saying that they don't tell the truth or whatever, but it's definitely going to be slanted towards what that person wants to present in that film.
Yeah, I find that because there's so much information all over the place, everywhere you look, that you just have to look at everything with a pinch of salt. As in, look at something, absorb it, don't take it as fact. Sort of try and take the things that you can from it to better your
Right.
knowledge. Try and find amusement out of it, like a film or documentary. Enjoy the documentary. Don't like necessarily follow the knowledge of what they're saying, but look at the scenery, the desert, wherever they're filming. Find positives from it. Enjoy as much as you can, but don't really just because you see like something doesn't mean it's real, and just because you hear something doesn't mean it is. And if you do that with a filter over everything, then you'll be the smart one who's absorbing what's true and moving away the stuff that isn't, as opposed to just always hearing it and then saying, dude, I heard it's 15 meters ground. Oh, dude, I heard it was 20.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, dude, and then, oh, dude, you said it was 20. Don't think about that dude saying it was 20. Ask yourself, if you heard 15 and he heard 20, well, ask yourself, what is the real truth? And then it just comes up to common sense. Just
Hmm.
give yourself a certain space away from people.
But I think that that's the key word right there is common sense, and I don't think that people use that a lot. They, like I said, whatever's sensationalized is what is good for them. You know what I mean? Whatever is the hot topic, instead of just going, you know what, that can't possibly be right, or maybe a little bit of that's right. It's, yeah, that's got to be it, because that is absolutely crazy. So that has to be the story. That has to be the facts.
Yeah, common sense. I have a quote. Common sense isn't taught; it's learnt. They seem to think that you can teach common sense, like it's common, like everyone knows it, so it
Hmm.
must be common. Common sense is learnt. Like if I'm carrying up a glass of hot water up the stairs and I've got socks on, I could slip. Well, you have to slip to learn. That common sense says probably best not to wear socks, or don't carry the water so close to you. You can't
Hmm.
really. Our parents can't teach that, because when somebody tells you what to do, you want to do the opposite. You want to be like, oh, it doesn't apply to me. I'm smart. If I touch that place, I'm going to burn my finger. So you touch the hot plate. And so, in your dad's not there watching you, you hold the glass close to you as a way of like saying, I'm in control, and tell me what to do. And you spill. So we can only learn through lessons. And when everyone is teaching lessons, like wherever you fucking go, what you can or can't do, no one's essentially making their own mistakes. And so, therefore, no one's really feeling what it's like to be in those situations. It's like no one's ever gone hungry for more than a week, because supermarkets are always there. And in the week that there's no food, everyone's just buying loads of shit. And it's like, well, if people are buying all this stuff, they eat X amount of calories per week. In 3 weeks' time, no one's going to be shopping, because they would have had fucking 4 months of supplies in their garage. It's like how they've got not the 4th of July, they've got the relatives coming around. They're not going to eat all that food.
Right,
You know what
right,
I mean? And then so it'll just like, again, the shelves will be stocked and all the food will start going out of date because no one's buying it because they've got so much.
right, right. Absolutely. And just we talked about it once again on the show last week. We talked a lot about everything that's going on in the world, and we took it from a lot of different angles. We looked at the way movie theaters are adjusting to this, and what a lot of them have done is shut down actual theaters and bars. And actually, where we're at in the United States, the restaurants are only takeout. There are no movie theaters, no gyms, no. They've closed down one more thing, and I can't remember what it is, but there's none of those things now. So what a lot of the movie studios, especially like Universal, has started to do is saying, starting tomorrow on the 20th, that any movies that they had in theaters and possible upcoming movies that they were going to release in theaters are now going to be able to be viewed on video on demand. So you can watch them right from your home, because they have figured out, I think that we talked about, they had said right now they had lost like $7 billion in the movie industry, and by the time this is over it should be like 17 or 19 million, something like that. And they are figuring out new ways to do this. Restaurants are only takeout now, so you have to go and pick up your food and just take it from there. So a lot of people are out of work and things like that. So I think it's the same thing as with the groceries. We're going to shut down so many of these things that it's going to be. I think if we go so far, and this is once again just my opinion, if we go so far by shutting down all these places, by putting all these people out of work, we're going to have a hard time coming out of this thing.
Yeah. So I forgot what I was going to say. We are also dependent on everyone for everything, right? And as much as it's sad, and for example, if a relative or a friend passed away from the coronavirus, right? If they've got a weak immune, then that's why they've passed away. But they could fall over and cut themselves, or just have normal flu, and they would pass away because they're weak immune. So it's not the coronavirus specifically that is creating all this stuff. It's just life throwing everything at us at once, where we are unable to manage it all. And so when you look at it from like a humanitarian purpose, this is nature essentially, like Australian wildfires and California wildfires. All the trees that just sort of died and just fell there years ago, they dry up, and they're just like, they're not allowing the other trees to grow. Tinder, yeah. And so then the nature, the sun heats them and the fire burns and it burns, and then it goes back to ash, and all the nutrients in the ash creates new trees. Now, essentially, we are no different to trees, humans. As much as we're all like family and we all love each other, we're connected. It's nature's way of saying there's too many people close to us, too many trees in the same place, too many humans in the same place, too many chickens in the same cage. There's an imbalance. Like, for example, fish in the ocean. If the coral's been destroyed from whatever you want to call it, then those little fishes don't eat, and the big fishes, it's an imbalance. So this is like the universe's way of saying, look, too many humans. There's not supposed to be this many humans this close together. And if you don't sort of stop fucking breeding, well, this disease is going to jump like fucking crickets to the next thing. And as sad it is if you know somebody, this is nature's way of saying you need to balance out. Too much shit going on.
Well, I think I don't want to believe that on the most basic level that it is, that it's I guess you would say natural selection.
Yes.
You know, I think that you're right though, when in certain aspects of when you look at highly populated areas and sanitary conditions and things like that. That's the only problem that I have trouble with, is because you look at some of the places this has gone. You look in Italy and China, and people talk about like Wuhan village, how dirty it is there, and all those things. Now, by no means is Wuhan small. There's tons and tons of people there, but they say that there's unsanitary market conditions. But we're having the same problem where we're supposed to have good sanitary conditions in countries that are known for sanitary conditions and known for health and all those different things. We're known for those kind of things, but yet we still have the problem. So that's the only part of the logic that you're presenting that I have trouble with in saying that it's natural selection, because it doesn't matter whether it's dirty, clean, whatever it may be, it's still traveling all around the world. You know what I mean? So until they come up with a cure for it, and they have started, I guess, human testing on the cure for it. So, you know.
Then if you watch the Netflix series, it actually came out. It's a vaccine thing. It came out literally the same day the coronavirus came out. And
are you talking about Pandemic?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I watched it.
They made a flu go from six jabs down to 3, and they want to try and get it into 1, where it will essentially protect anyone from all strains of flu.
Right.
Bill Gates just funded it. So if Bill's smart, which he is, I think that he'll be flooding millions, billions more into these people, and they'll have this vaccine out. And like things like that. It's good for humanity. And what you were saying, that you could look at it in terms of natural selection, in terms of how it works, but we are choosing to be this close together. We are choosing not to sanitize. So even though it's the same like thing as natural selection, we are creating it ourselves, which is avoidable. If we sanitize better, if we didn't put all those, for example, chickens in the same cage, you could control this, and we can still live in close cities like Italy and China and London and Wuhan, and this flu thing wouldn't happen. So we are kind of thinking we're too elite, and that we don't have to, for for example, sanitize, which is creating this problem, even though it is part of natural selection over time. But this is avoidable when you
Absolutely.
understand how
But
it
if it
spreads.
took a pandemic to make you wash your hands, that kind of sounds like it's a you problem. That if it took them putting out commercials to say you need to wash your hands for this and you need to use warm water or hot water or whatever, that's a problem on its most basic level in the world. That like you said, I guess that's the only way to look at it, thinking superior to that'll never happen to me. I cannot sanitize, I cannot do this, I cannot do that. And those are basic things that could help stop this. Like you said, common sense is probably not that common.
Exactly.
I
There's
mean,
so
these
many,
are basic things. Wash your hands, stay clean. You know, the these are things you should know from being a kid. If you're an adult, I mean, these are things you should know already.
yeah, there's so many tribes and countries and beliefs and like places around the world with different ways of living. So common sense, what are you talking about? The whole of humanity, or humans only in America, or humans in the Western part, which includes the other countries? Like, what is it meant by common? Like, if we've all evolved at different times and our different countries have evolved, then they might not have, they might not know the knowledge we know. So it's not really common. It's common to us because everyone knows it, but really it's not common. And if we're all connected as we are, and one thing can pretty much spread and travel across the whole world in seconds, then this thing about the new world order and how everything needs to be run as one and everything needs to be funded as one, like universal credit. Well, when you look at it like this, it does make sense, because if we are all connected and we all rely on everyone's stock markets and companies and whatever, there does need to be universal credit. Um, just as there needs to be like a universal kind of rule of the common sense thing, like not necessarily laws, but a basis of human survival for situations like this.
Yeah, I'm by no means an expert on this topic at all, but I think that the problem that you run into with universal credit and things like that is, look at what happened with the EU and with Brexit and things like that, where we tried to bring a bunch of different countries together under one monetary fund, and they had a lot of problems with it. I don't know that we're ready for a universal credit, especially with the ability to, because if you look at how the dollar compares to the yen or how the dollar compares to the pound or whatever, you can transfer that money all around, and and they have places where you can exchange, currency exchanges and things like that. I don't know, and I'm by no means an expert, like I said, but I'm not sure that the world's ready for uh, a universal currency or one way of thinking, because like you just said, that people came up at different times, they came up with different ways they were raised, and it's not common. I don't know that we're ready for that kind of it, it, unity, I guess you'd say. Is that the right word? I don't know that we're ready to. I don't know that countries are ready to accept that yet, or people in general are ready to accept that.
What I meant by universal credit actually is not one global currency. I meant governments giving every person in their country a set amount per month, like £500 per month, for example. If every country did that, everyone's kind of got £500 aside. They're still working or whatever, but they have this £500 like default money.
Mhm.
So when situations like this happen, people are able to fund their own shits rather than the government bailing us out when we have none. We've got some already. That's what I meant by universal credit, not like a new global currency.
Right. And the only problem I see with that, though, and I completely misunderstood you on that. The
No, I
only
did
problem
explain myself.
yeah, the only problem that I can see with that is you're going to have people, once again, we go back to the common sense theory. You're going to have people that get that £500 a month, and they're not going to put it aside. They're going to spend it. And then when it comes to this again, they're not going to have the money.
But if
They're
they're spending it, it's going back into the government, which is then you keeping the economy up. As long as they're not like, I mean, that's the thing. If it's sitting in the bank, there's interest. If they're spending it, it's going to someone who's paying the taxes.
But at
Um,
what point are you throwing good money after bad?
as long as they are
What I mean
working,
is how much more how much more are you putting out there? How much is it costing you to put this out there as to what you're getting back? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, like obviously money is printed on demand. There's no such thing as money. It's just trade. Like you trade this for that, and now it's just gone into money. So when you think about how money doesn't really exist, and it's just simply trading, and that Mac is only £1 because it's demand, it doesn't really exist. So if you just gave everyone like money, it just means that they could always trade with the basics that they need, like food or whatever. It's just like this. Like everything only has a value because of the different values different items have. But if everyone had money to just trade when they needed or wanted, then the institutions would still be high because we'll be spending it on those types of things. But the money would keep flowing because we'd now have the money.
But I think the problem that you would run into is that money would become worthless after a while. Because if we say that everybody has it, because that's what makes it valuable, is that everybody doesn't have it. That's what makes it of value. That's why there's billionaires. That's why there's Bill Gates. That's why there's different people. And so when you try and make it where everyone is equal across the board, that's where you run into trouble, because that devalues everything. And what I mean by devalues is, if everyone has the exact same means, nothing is gonna it's nothing is going to be as valuable as it is right now. Am I making sense?
No, absolutely. But yeah, if you look at it in terms of like business and economy, absolutely. But in terms of humanity, we are all equal anyway. So this is where the problem starts. It's like, at what point is it humanity versus whatever's happening before there's a crisis like this? Because it's like now it's not about what side you're on in terms of politics. It's now just about humans. So it's like this balance of humans versus economy. Economy is essentially for making the rich man rich. But then at any point, that could all be destroyed. Like all these businesses could literally lose everything overnight, and all the money he has in his bank disappears because he needs to pay for his house because his house is worth fucking 20 million quid. And all of a sudden, everyone loses everything with value. So it's like it's humans are all equal, or it's this balance of this has value because you want it and I've got it. Again, there's no middle ground, really, is there? Because it's all circumstantial. It's like when it's flooding, it's like, yeah, when it's flooding, you're like, oh my god, everything's destroyed. And when it's sunny, you're just enjoying the sun. But then, you know what I mean? It's a balance. There isn't just one or
Well,
the other.
and when you say it's against humanity versus economy, I think that, but the way I look at the humanity of it is the person who makes $100,000 doesn't need $1,000 check. Would it be nice if they gave uh, uh, you or I, as an example, if they gave us $1,000 a month? Would it really change, who we are? Or does the person who doesn't have a job during this, do they need the money more? And if we can direct resources to them, I think that's better overall. I think that puts us on more of an equal footing than anything, is that they don't just fall to the wayside. There's a certain point where you or I or the guy next to us doesn't need that $1,000, and it would be better served to someone who has lost a job during this, has lost their home during this, has done all these different things. I think that's more humane than anything. Instead of just everyone in general, let's give it to the people that need it. And what I mean by the people that need it, the people that are trying to make it work. People who are working, trying to take care of their families, trying to take care of their houses, not just giving it away free. I think that's where there has to be a balance. Who needs it? Why do they need it? And I think we have to look at all those different points before we just hand out money, because like I said, once you just start handing it out over and over, it becomes useless. There'll always be, even if there wasn't money to hand out, things will always look at all the Mad Max movies. Fuel is the thing that drives everyone. It's, you can't buy it in the Mad Max movie worlds, but it's more valuable than anything. And then in this last Mad Max that we had, the Fury Road, water was the most important. Gas and water. So I think that you're right in it has to be humanity that we look at, of course, because that's what makes us survive as a species. But I think you have to. I don't think you can just look at it in that basic way of you need money, you need this, we need to take care of this. I think it has to be counterbalanced with, okay, we have to be smart about this. And once again, it goes back to that thing of common sense.
I think I'm looking at it in terms of it's almost like the thing about going within rather than going out. People have a problem, they go out, they don't go within.
Mm-hmm.
If, for example, everything that you want is on the outside needs money, you're going to need money, right? But if you don't know iPhones exist, you don't know phones exist, caps, earphones, whatever, DVDs, right? Then all
Mm-hmm.
you pretty much need is food. And you and your mates in a Texas village can just trade carrots and peas and milk and cheese and all the stuff you need to survive. Which means money doesn't really you don't need money. You just need to survive. You've got your log fires, you keep them warm. You've got your food and your water. When you're looking about this thing, as I said about universal credit, meaning people haven't got enough money to simply live the modern life because it costs too much. And you said throwing money at it doesn't solve the problem. You're right. It's like what people do, like the NHS in our country. You just give it another £5 billion and nobody fixes itself. The problem is there's too many fucking people ill, not enough people, like not enough people working. Whereas if people stop like becoming dependent on somebody else, just took care of themselves and ate healthily, rather than just eating shit and then suddenly hating the NHS because they can't put them in a bed because he's a fucking fat idiot who's eating loads of shit all day, and then blaming those. Look within, understand that this isn't good for you. What did you expect was going to happen? Your heart was just going to be like, keep bringing me more, you know. So yeah, in terms of the system of the hierarchy, whatever, throwing money at it is creating more problems. I think the actual problem is people are dependent and they need to stop being independent. And just because they see an iPhone, see a big house, see this, see that, doesn't mean you've got to slave your ass off making money to get that, because that is simply an illusion.
Unfortunately, though, I think that cat's already out of the bag. I don't think I don't think we go back from that. And a big point of that is where you say that we could have just traded peas or carrots in a small village or eaten better and gone internally. But a guy that you mentioned that's helping to fund a virus cure is one of the wealthiest men in the entire world because people every other year bought the new Windows 10, Windows 16, Windows XP. He's rich because of that very thought. So I think that cat's already out of the bag. There's no turning back to, well, we need to go back to a simpler life. I think the better answer for that is instead of a simpler life, a more controlled and a once again common sense life.
So,
Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should.
so are you saying that if there's two options, right? What is likely to happen? People realizing that they can't keep up with the price of living, no matter how many hours they work, prices keep going up and they keep working and saving, getting 5 jobs, credit cards, loans to live this modern life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or you realize, okay, I'm not going to be able to afford all this stuff. I can't even afford a phone, let alone a car, and let alone a house. So I'm just going to forget about all that stuff. Okay. And I'm just going to live my life with my friends in my local neighborhood, drink beer down the pub, make food, serve people, kind of like the old days, but a more modern time of that. So
I
rather
don't
than just like carrots and stuff, we might make lasagna with like different herbs and stuff. But um, if it goes back to that, so basically that lifestyle, but then if you come across a second-hand iPhone, then you can sort of take advantage of it. Or the other style where you're never going to keep up with the demand of life and you just keep chasing.
but
Is there a middle ground?
I don't think there is. Well, yeah, but once again, that falls back to the middle ground. Is it falls back to the individual. It doesn't. That's my whole point. Is that there is a middle ground, but it's on you to make that middle ground happen. But even then, you just mentioned go down to the pub and drink beer. The pub costs money. They're not going to give you that beer for free. You're not going to be able to unless you barter with them and say, "I'll wash all the dishes in the bar for free beer." It's going to cost you money. So I once again, and I think if you look at it in the world that we live in, there's a reason that they make a new iPhone every year because people are going to buy it. If there wasn't a demand for it, they wouldn't do it. Just like you said, you buy up all these groceries, and in 3 weeks, the stores are stocked because everyone has too much food. If there wasn't a demand for it, they wouldn't do it. So, as in a middle ground, yes, there's a middle ground, but that middle ground depends on that person themselves, not society as a whole. You have to make those decisions of, I want to buy that bigger house, I want to buy that bigger car, I'm willing to work for this, I'm willing to work for that. Because how many people, and this is a question directed to you, how many people do you know that have the latest iPhone or the latest gadget that can't afford it?
Pretty much all of them, because it's on finance.
Exactly. So if the demand is not there, it won't happen. But the demand is there. So like I said, we've already let that cat out of the bag. There's no stuffing it back in there now. Uh, all you can do is learn from it. And just like you said with the example of the hot tea going upstairs or hot water going upstairs, until you fall on your face, you're not going to realize, oh, I can't afford that. This is going to happen as an end result of me trying to do that.
So you think that people are going to continuously chase this money to get the new thing, as opposed to go
Absolutely.
back and trading a carrot for a tomato sauce?
Absolutely.
How
Absolutely.
how about, for example, there's 99 followers and there's always the one entrepreneur, right? There's one leader and 99 followers, right? Majority of people are negative and there's one who's positive. When you look at it like that, when we say everyone's going to follow, do you mean the 99% of followers are going to follow that pattern, but the enlightened people, like the one in the room out of the 99, are going to realize, okay, I need a TV to watch stuff, otherwise I'm going to become outdated. But I also understand the importance of just trading and local stuff, but also just the middle ground. You said it's individual. Their middle ground is, I need to live this life more, and when I can have an iPhone or whatever, I will, but I won't keep chasing. Do you think that 1% will not follow, but they'll just sort of pivot in between as and when? As you said, it's individually based.
Yeah, by no means do I mean every single person on the planet is going to do it. That by no means do I mean that. Yes, there are going to be people that do that. But once again, that's an individual thought. That's an individual idea that you have. So when I say that, you're right. There are going to be people that say, I need a TV, but I don't necessarily, like in the United States, you can have cable or not have cable. You can have an antenna, a digital antenna with your TV, and you can watch free channels um, on your TV. So people say, yeah, I need to have a TV, but I don't need to pay $100 a month for cable TV. You know, people do that. It's a way to save money. But once again, who am I? The first point of this is, who am I to tell people what they can and cannot buy and how they can and cannot live their life? As long as they're not breaking the law, as long as they're not hurting anyone, who am I to say what they should do and what they shouldn't do? That goes to the point of, once again, it's that individual's decision. No, I'm not going to chase that anymore. But like I said, we're in a society where everything is at our fingertips. You can look up anything you want in a half a second on your phone, on your computer, on your TV. There's so many ways. Look, we're talking right now. We're 13 hours difference, and we can see each other on video right now. That cat is out of the bag. We can't go back. And I hate to keep saying that, but I think we're so far gone that it just has to be on the individual now. And the markets and this kind of stuff will self-regulate itself. I mean, that's the way it is. I don't think that there's a way that we can force people into that simple lifestyle.
I was thinking today when I went to the supermarket, right, how there's no food and how we're literally all depending on apps and deliveries to deliver our food. And then I thought, what if technology went down? Like, we would be fucked, because as everything goes towards technology like this, we keep going forward and we don't realize how far we're going. Like, we're bringing everyone in the same city, right? Because profit, building flats up here, whatever, loads of food. And then something like the flu, we're not realizing the closer you are, the more likely you are to get it. I was thinking to myself, if everything is becoming technology and online, we don't know at any point how the sun can affect technology, or whether the Earth starts going the opposite direction, right? We don't know what an electric storm could do to the atmosphere. It could permanently damage energy, which is what we use for, 3G and internet. I thought to myself, if we had no internet, we would all be fucked because everything is internet. So at what point do you sort of look at something like the flu and think, okay, man has evolved, man can do this, but also man isn't nature. Nature's always going to win. And like, how do you counteract that? How do you have like a backup plan for when technology goes down? I mean, what the fuck do you
Well,
do?
I think I completely disagree with you on this because I think that just like you said, humanity will overcome. I understand there's nothing that holds a candle to nature of what it can do, but I think that humanity adapts and overcomes, and they've done that since the beginning of time. I think that if the internet goes down, will it be hard and will people lose their minds in the beginning? Absolutely. But we'll figure out a way to get around it. And I'm with our conversation, I'm running out of time because I have to be somewhere. But I think that's the biggest point of it all is positivity. We have to look at this is not the end. This is another obstacle in our way. And I think that we as a species will evolve and adapt and will overcome to whatever we need. We'll find a vaccine for this. We'll have another one that appears and we'll find a vaccine for that. Will there be broken eggs along the way? Absolutely. But I believe as a species, overall positivity that we will survive.
If technology went down, right, and we couldn't see our fellow humans across the pond, and all you saw was like your 300 people in the village, at that point, would we start having to trade locally? So your screen for my rug, my iPhone for your PlayStation, my Xbox for this,
But with
have
no
you got
technology, would those be worth anything? With every example that you just gave, what would they be? What would the value be in them? We
okay?
have no technology.
That was a bad example about Xbox and PS3. But then again, you can play like PS4 not online. You can just play the game, for
Absolutely.
example. But
Absolutely.
so you wouldn't know about, fellow humans because you're now going back to the basics. But as you said, humanity will overcome if there was no technology. Do you mean they would find a way to travel and get back around the world and do what
Absolutely.
they're good?
Absolutely.
Or do you mean
We
just
did
like
it when there
survive locally?
we did it when there wasn't the technology that we had. Look at all of the travels of Christopher Columbus and the explorers and the wooden ships. They found their way around the world. We would figure out a way to do it. We might not have the technology that we have right now, but we as a human species would figure out a way to do it. That
So do you think that it would go back to like, for example, we don't have technology and machines to build a plastic, metal, steel boat, but we'd have to literally chop down trees and make wooden boats like Christopher Columbus, as you said.
yes, I think that we would do that. I think that as a species, we will do what it takes to survive.
So you think we can go from like building massive yachts with like digital and everything's connected to if we've not got Wi-Fi and 3G and shit, that doesn't exist. So we'll have to literally make wooden boats and rebuild and start again and create a new form of Wi-Fi or a new form of technology and just build from scratch, but quickly because we're now more advanced.
Yes, I absolutely believe that.
I agree. It's fascinating to think about how we could go from that, lose it all, and make
And
it.
build it back. Yeah, absolutely.
But because
I
we've already got
believe
there in the mind, it's easier to get there again.
you have to believe in us as in humans as a species. We will figure out what it takes to survive. We are not the kind to just lay down and okay, that's the end. We have I want to believe we have evolved higher than that.
It's amazing. You look at cities and how quickly they go up, houses and how quickly they go up. Businesses like McDonald's buy a building and overnight they put everything in and it's all up
Hmm.
and running. How quickly humans do shit. And then you think about how long it took, like thousands of years for a human to get to this point from the wooden boat. It's like it took that long to get there and you can lose it all overnight, but then we can get it back because we have already evolved in the mind.
But if you think about it, how long the Earth's been here, is that really very long? I
No, it's
mean,
pathetic.
look in just the change in technology in just the last 100 years, in the last 50 years. We talked about it on my show one night. Just iPhones. Look at from when the very first iPhone was launched until the iPhone we have right now that has 3 cameras on it and all these different things. We're talking a span of like 15, 20 years. I mean, it's nothing. It's nothing in compared to the time that the Earth has been around.
That's the thing. Are you somebody who believes that it's the same cycle over and over again? So humans have built technology many, many years ago, and they've gone to the moon, and their cities underwater. Do you think that we're just continuously doing the same cycle? Like we're going to space, which is essentially the aliens of the past generations thinking, "Oh, that looks like a nice planet. Let's go there." And the aliens in the round ship is essentially an old version of a plane with 2 wings like that. Do you think we're just recycling the same thoughts
There
and
is a
doing it over
lot
and
of
over again?
theories out there. Yeah, there's a lot of theories
I'm
out there
starting
that
to
that
believe
has
it now.
actually. Yeah, there's a lot of theories out there that has actually happened. There was a very big. I don't know if you ever listened to the Joe Rogan podcast, but he has a
Absolutely.
lot of people. Yeah, so he has a lot of people on that talk about that, and that they believe that there was probably a civilization. It was destroyed and we can't find remnants of it because of whatever the ice age, whatever it was. And then we started over because they even talk about the pyramids where they say that the pyramids and when they drill into the stone that was used that it's a different time frame than when those pyramids were actually built. When it's written down that these pyramids were built, well, the stones are 10,000, 100,000 years older than when they said they were built. So yeah, I think it's that, and like I said, I'm going to have to get out of here because I have a
Yeah,
place
okay.
that I need to be. But I think overall the message is that we should look at in this entire situation is positivity. We will overcome this. Yes, it seems like the world is ending right now, but I think that we as a species will figure out a way to work it out.
I agree. Quickly plug your podcast and anything you want to plug right now.
Yeah, yeah. So I run the Double Speak Studios, and we have a couple different things on there. We have What to Stream, where we talk about things that are on Netflix and things like that. We have Film School Insider, where we kind of break down older films, and then our big show is Dads That Drink, and we meet every Friday on Facebook, and we have a live show that you can watch on Facebook on the Double Speak Studio. So anybody that wants to go on there, we're a group called Double Speak Studios on Facebook. We have a live show that's between 2.5 and 3 hours every Friday, where we just talk about things that are going on in the world, funny things. We talk about science a lot. We talk about just things in general, just to kind of let the week kind of melt off us and head into our weekend. We always have a different drink or a different beer that we talk about. And we also have doublespeakstudios.com, which is www.doublespeakstudios.com. You can go on there. You can find out what's they're streaming on Netflix, Amazon, on Hulu. You can look through all the videos that we have, all the reviews that we have. There's a lot of different things on there that you can find for people to entertain themselves, especially during this quarantine and things like that. So that's what we do. We would love people to come on, give us ideas of what to talk about, give us we have giveaways where we give away movies and things like that for people answering questions. So we just are trying to have a good time and kind of take that everything in the world that happens to you during the week. We kind of want to start your weekend off in a good mood. So
Well said. Cool. I'm going to
thank you.
press stop and I'll just say goodbye at the end, all right?
Okay.
Fucking thing's not stopping. Oh, hang on. If I end the Skype call, do you reckon it will definitely save?
Yeah, it should. Once you hang up, it should. I can actually stop the recording from here.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay.